Welcome to the debate. Imagine walking into a massive library that contains literally every book, article, and piece of media ever created in human history.
Okay, wow. That sounds completely overwhelming.
Exactly, right? But instead of you wandering aimlessly through these endless, overwhelming corridors, the architecture of the building subtly shifts around you the moment you step inside, like the shelves literally rearrange themselves based on where your eyes linger.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, the lighting brightens down the aisles you find most interesting, and the exact books you actually need practically, slide off the shelves into your hands before you even have to ask a librarian.
Well, it sounds like magic. But the catch to that metaphor is that the library isn't rearranging those shelves just to help you learn or to broaden your horizons.
You don't think so?
No, it's arranging them to keep you inside the building for as long as possible. It is intentionally placing books in your path that the highest bidding publishers want you to read while quietly hiding the exits. You think you're choosing your path, but the architecture is leading you.
And that exact tension is what we are exploring today. We are examining the seamless, constant integration of artificial intelligence into our daily lives, specifically how algorithms quietly observe our actions to predict our behavior and, shape our choices.
Right.
The central question we are unpacking is this: does AI-driven personalization represent a triumph of digital convenience that serves our everyday needs, or does it fundamentally undermine human autonomy by subtly engineering our behavior for corporate optimization?
Which is really the defining structural reality of the modern internet. Today, we are drawing on source material that extensively analyzes how AI actually influences these choices through, continuous data collection, predictive profiling, and these massively complex optimization mechanisms.
Yeah.
We want to get past the surface level effects and really look at the underlying machinery.
So I will be arguing from the perspective of a digital convenience enthusiast. I view this technology as an absolute triumph of engineering. By processing thousands of microsignals, AI efficiently reduces our cognitive load.
Okay, reduces cognitive load.
Yes, it filters out the noise and provides highly relevant, tailored experiences that actually manage the overwhelming scale of the modern digital world for us.
And I will be defending the perspective of human autonomy. I argue that this continuous invisible observation actively exploits human psychological vulnerabilities. It basically traps users in a digitally engineered architecture of choice that is completely asymmetrical.
Asymmetrical how?
By prioritizing corporate metrics like engagement and retention over our fundamental agency.
All right, well, to lay out the foundation for my position, we really have to start by acknowledging a basic limitation of human psychology, which is that human deliberation is incredibly costly. We only have so much mental bandwidth in a given day.
Sure, decision fatigue is a real thing.
We don't calculate the exact probability of every outcome before making a decision. We rely on heuristics, which are, mental shortcuts. We rely on past experiences, trusted recommendations, or environmental cues to navigate complex decisions without burning out.
Right, we use shortcuts.
AI systems are essentially globally scaled digital extensions of that natural human process. The volume of information generated online every single minute is just paralyzing.
It is a lot, yeah.
By tracking tiny signals like the time you spend hovering over an image or scroll speed, the exact sequence of your searches, these models build predictive frameworks that genuinely make life easier. Think about a dynamic map routing you around a traffic accident before you even know the accident happened.
But that's a very specific utility-based example.
Or a curated feed that filters out millions of irrelevant posts to show you the handful of things that actually matter to your profession or your hobbies. These are highly efficient, personalized tools that reduce friction. They save us time, and crucially, they respond dynamically to our actual revealed preferences.
Okay, look, I understand the appeal of friction reduction, but we really have to look closely at the underlying cost of that convenience. What you're describing as a helpful digital assistant is what the source material explicitly identifies as a quiet architecture of choices.
Architecture isn't inherently a bad thing.
But my position is that this convenience comes at the unacceptable cost of our autonomy, primarily because of the intent built into the system's core. Platforms are not collecting behavioral data to optimize human well-being or to perfectly align with your long-term goals.
They want to provide a good service so you come back.
They are building models to maximize specific, measurable corporate objectives, usually time on site, engagement, and conversion rates. And to achieve those metrics at scale, they explicitly exploit psychological levers.
Exploit is a strong word.
But it's accurate. The system uses social proof. It manufactures urgency through scarcity and infers deeply personal emotional states. The AI doesn't just predict what you will do, it covertly steers your behavior by narrowing your worldview, gradually locking you into what the research describes as a cage of familiarity. You aren't being assisted, you are being managed.
Okay, but let's look at how that management actually operates. I want to unpack the mechanics of the digital profile, because I think the concept of a profile gets mischaracterized as some static, dystopian file sitting in a digital filing cabinet.
Right. It's not a manila folder with your name on it.
Exactly. The reality of machine learning is that a profile is a living, multidimensional vector space. It is a constantly updating probabilistic model. If the system notices that your behavior aligns with people who read about, say, enterprise software, it adjusts the weights in your specific vector to classify you in that cluster. It then curates your environment to offer genuinely useful options that match that vector. Without this mechanism, the internet is practically unusable. It's just a chronological fire hose of irrelevant data.
Well, I come at it from a different way. Right, it isn't a static file, it is a dynamic vector space. But the AI isn't neutrally observing your software searches and politely offering you a relevant article.
It kind of is, though.
No, it is utilizing collaborative filtering. It maps your micro-behaviors against millions of other users to find the shortest possible path to a conversion. And here's where the harm occurs. It uses partial information to infer deeply personal vulnerabilities.
Vulnerabilities like what?
Well, if you repeatedly click on certain products, pause on specific images, or, abandon a cart, this system isn't just learning your aesthetic style. It's inferring your specific budget elasticity, your urgency level, and your current emotional state.
I think that's giving the system a little too much credit for omniscience.
It's just math. This creates a severe information asymmetry. The platform's algorithm operates on thousands of data points about your immediate psychological state and vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, you, the user, have almost zero visibility into why a specific choice was placed in front of you at that exact millisecond.
Okay, I want to pause on that asymmetry point, because I'm genuinely trying to map that onto how the models actually adjust in real time. I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because, well, if I search for a mechanical keyboard and the system serves me mechanical keyboards, the asymmetry doesn't seem harmful. It just matched my query.
That's a direct search, though. That's different from a passive feed.
But more importantly, the system is fundamentally subservient to user feedback. If the algorithm presents a recommendation and I scroll past it, what happens?
It logs the ignore.
Right. The model's loss function registers that as an error or a non-event. It recalculates, it reduces its confidence in that category, and stops serving it to me. Doesn't that mechanism prove that the algorithm is, at its core, simply acting as a mirror?
A mirror?
Yes, it's reflecting our true, revealed preferences back at us. If we don't click, the algorithm learns not to serve.
It reflects a very specific, narrow version of our preferences, though. The version of us operating purely on instinct. And this brings up the crucial distinction between our stated preferences and our revealed preferences.
Which the source material gets into, yeah.
Exactly. Your stated preference is who you want to be. You want to learn a new language, you want to eat healthy, you want to read rigorous journalism. Your revealed preference is what you actually click on when your lizard brain is in control at the end of a long day.
Okay, sure.
Algorithms exclusively optimize for the latter because instinctual clicks generate faster data and higher engagement. The system isn't holding up a mirror to your whole self. It is holding up a funhouse mirror that exaggerates your most impulsive, reactive traits because those are the traits that satisfy the algorithm's loss function.
But isn't that just a reality of human nature rather than some malicious algorithmic design? We say we want to watch a 3-hour historical documentary, but on a Tuesday night, we actually click on a 20-minute sitcom.
Because you're tired.
Right. The algorithm isn't forcing me to click the sitcom, it's just accurately predicting what I actually have the energy for in that moment. That's the revealed preference. Why is it the algorithm's fault for simply giving me what I demonstrably want, rather than what I aspirationally claim to want?
Because the algorithm is an active participant in shaping what you want. We need to look at how these systems use proxy metrics. And AI doesn't actually understand human fatigue or relaxation.
Of course not, it's code.
It only understands proxy metrics, like a sudden drop in scroll speed or a pattern of swiping past text-heavy posts. So let's take that tired user browsing late at night. The system correlates a time-of-day vector and a behavioral slowdown with a high probability of engagement on low-friction, high dopamine content.
And so it serves it?
It serves that content continuously. It removes stopping cues. It autoplays the next video. That is not a helpful service. That is the exploitation of a vulnerable cognitive state designed purely to hold attention. It shifts habits over time and actively contributes to compulsive use.
That's an interesting point, though I would frame it differently. I see the mechanics of what you're describing, but I still see an empathetic design choice buried in there.
Empathetic? Really?
Yes, hear me out. Matching low-effort content to a tired user makes sense. If I am exhausted, I actually want content that demands less cognitive effort. And regarding the psychological levers, like highlighting what my friends liked or putting a timer on a sale, humans use these exact same shortcuts offline.
But the context...
If I'm buying a car, I ask a friend what they drive. That's social proof. If a car has a limited time rebate, I might buy it sooner. That's scarcity. AI is just digitizing and scaling the way we inherently process information. It aligns with how our brains already work.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. The mechanisms might be similar, but the scale and the intent make it a completely different paradigm. Offline heuristics aren't deployed by a centralized supercomputer optimizing for quarterly revenue.
Well, a car salesman is definitely optimizing for revenue.
Sure, but when your friend recommends a car, their loss function is your friendship and your satisfaction. When an algorithm recommends a product, using social proof, its loss function is maximizing the extraction of your attention or your capital.
But again, I choose whether to buy it.
When these systems repeatedly deploy these levers at a global scale, they subtly alter the entire digital environment. We begin to adapt our behavior to the algorithm. We change how we title our videos, how we phrase our emails, how we search for information, just to appease the machine's sorting parameters. We lose the authenticity of our digital spaces.
I mean, cultures adapt to mediums. That's always happened.
But empathetic design would recognize the proxy metrics for fatigue and suggest you close the app and go to sleep. Algorithmic optimization serves an endless scroll of frictionless content to keep your eyes on the screen until 2 a.m., precisely because your sleep is not a variable in its optimization equation.
All right, I can see that the optimization equation doesn't prioritize my sleep schedule. Fair enough. But I strongly reject the idea that we are just passive victims in this loop, somehow stripped of our agency.
It's an uphill battle for agency.
The source material outlines clear ways we can reclaim our agency, precisely because the technology relies on our inputs. We are not helpless subjects. We can introduce intentional friction back into our digital lives.
If we know how.
Right, but we can choose to clear tracking cookies, which severs the historical data the model relies on. We can disable personalized ads. We can turn off autoplay. We can set deliberate 24-hour delays for online purchases to circumvent the manufactured urgency.
That requires a lot of active effort.
The algorithm is a tool, and baseline awareness allows us to manage algorithmic influence just like we learn to navigate traditional television advertising or peer pressure in the physical world. If you disable the tracking, the model loses its predictive power. You disrupt the data collection right at the root.
Relying on individual users to generate critical friction against a continuous, perfectly scaling supercomputer is an entirely unfair battle. It's like asking someone to fight climate change by holding their breath.
Come on, it's not that extreme.
It is. The asymmetry in processing power is too vast. The system is watching your daily life continuously. It correlates when you wake up, the physical routes you take through geolocation, The exact millisecond you pause on a video, the micro hesitation before you click a button.
But again, you can turn off location tracking.
It creates a closed loop where it watches, predicts, reacts, measures your reaction, and updates its model instantly. Expecting a human brain, which is naturally prone to fatigue and distraction, to constantly outwit an automated system running millions of calculations per second is not a solution. It's an abdication of systemic responsibility.
But the personal friction does work. It isn't holding your breath, it's putting a wall up. When you use a privacy browser or utilize ad blockers, the loop is broken. The AI cannot optimize what it cannot see.
For the highly technically literate, perhaps, but for the vast majority of society, defaults dictate reality. Whatever the default setting is, that becomes the lived environment for like 95% of users.
Well, people need to take some responsibility for their settings.
That is exactly why true autonomy requires systemic change, not just personal vigilance. The material points out that we need platforms to mandate algorithmic explainability. When a choice is presented to you, you should be able to see the primary variables that led to that recommendation.
That sounds incredibly clunky.
We need default settings that favor user autonomy and data minimization right out of the box, rather than hiding privacy toggles 5 menus deep behind confusing language. We need interface designs that make alternative, non-optimized choices visible, rather than burying them beneath an infinite scroll. Without systemic guardrails, the burden is entirely on the exhausted user.
Look, I hear the appeal of systemic guardrails. I really do. But if we implement heavy-handed regulations that strip away the predictive capabilities of these models by default, we risk breaking the fundamental utility of the digital world. The seamlessness is the feature, not the bug.
I think it's the bug.
But if every single recommendation requires a pop-up explanation of its vector weights, or if the system defaults to a completely uncurated chronological feed of everything everywhere, the user is immediately overwhelmed. Cognitive load skyrockets. We return to the unnavigable library.
But at least you're walking under your own power.
The system must estimate probabilities and use proxy metrics to be useful at all. Yes, designers have an obligation for ethical product design, and considering long-term user welfare is important. But measuring success by genuine user value often correlates perfectly with engagement. People engage with things they find valuable.
Do they?
Yes. If the AI serves me a niche woodworking video that perfectly matches my obscure hobby, I engage with it because I value it.
But engagement is fundamentally a measure of attention, not a measure of welfare or value. People also engage heavily with things that make them angry, anxious, or compulsive.
Well, that's a human nature problem, not a tech problem.
A car crash on the side of the highway gets incredibly high engagement, but that doesn't mean it provides user value. The source material documents cases where platforms nudged behavior in ways that amplified polarized, high-conflict content specifically because it generated stronger reactions and kept people typing furiously in comment sections.
Which is why platforms adjust their algorithms to demote that stuff now.
That is engagement hacking. AI observing your daily life isn't some science fiction scenario of a robot staring at you through a camera. It is the practical, banal reality of a mathematical system quietly correlating vectors of your behavior at scale to extract maximum attention. When we conflate convenience with surveillance, we willingly walk into that cage of familiarity.
Let's pull these threads together as we synthesize our positions. My summary of the material and the reality of our digital landscape remains rooted in the sheer necessity of these tools. AI profiling, when navigated with baseline user awareness, primarily functions as a highly optimized continuous digital assistant.
A very self-interested assistant.
It successfully manages the overwhelming, impossible scale of the modern information ecosystem. By predicting our needs and learning from the traces we leave behind, it saves us time, it filters out the chaotic noise of the internet, and preserves our valuable mental energy for our offline lives, our families, and our complex decisions.
Assuming it lets you log off.
Yes, the mechanism inherently relies on observation, but it is an observation tethered to our own revealed preferences. When I look at the underlying machinery, I see a triumph of engineering that brings personalized order to absolute chaos.
And my summary is that this digital convenience is frequently a Trojan horse for systemic, asymmetrical behavioral engineering. The seamless integration of these algorithms slowly compromises human autonomy by circumventing our conscious deliberation.
It's a dark view.
It's a realistic view. It does this by quietly architecting our choices to serve corporate metrics, exploiting our deeply ingrained psychological heuristics, and replacing genuine, deliberate human agency with probabilistic predictions optimized for engagement. It reduces our complex daily actions into proxy metrics for a system we neither control nor fully understand.
Well, despite our starkly different framing on the intent and the outcomes of these systems, I think we find a significant point of convergence here. We both agree, and the source material is unequivocal on this point, that algorithmic influence is no longer a future possibility to be debated in theory.
No, not at all.
It is a present, environmental reality. It is as pervasive as the weather, cultural norms, or social pressure.
Exactly. The question isn't whether AI is watching our microsignals or shaping our choices. It is already doing that every single time we open our phones. The vital, ongoing challenge that the material points us toward is figuring out how to design the fundamental rules of this digital environment.
Right. Governance.
We have to determine who controls the optimization levers, who benefits from the data asymmetry, and how to ensure that these incredibly powerful algorithms serve human goals rather than merely amplifying corporate extraction.
It leaves us with a profound question of trade-offs as we move further into this ecosystem. How much invisible observation are we truly willing to exchange for the ultimate digital convenience? The next time you step into that massive digital library and the shelves seamlessly rearrange themselves to put the exact perfect book right into your hands, will you have to pause and ask yourself, are you navigating the architecture, or is the architecture navigating you?